What if the harder you try to be happy, the harder happiness becomes to find? Think about it. You wake up and check your phone. You see someone on vacation. Someone just got promoted. Someone is in love. Someone has built the body you want. Someone seems to have figured out life. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet question appears. Why don't I feel like that? So you try to fix it. You work harder. You make more money. You exercise. You travel. You improve your relationships. You meditate. You read books about happiness. You build better habits. You tell yourself that if you can just get your life into the right shape, you'll finally feel the way you're supposed to feel. Happy, fulfilled, at peace. But then something strange happens. You get what you wanted, and the feeling doesn't last. So you find something else to chase. A better job, a better relationship, a better body, a better home, a better version of yourself. And once again, you tell yourself, maybe this is the thing that will finally make me happy. But what if this is the trap? What if the problem isn't that you haven't found happiness yet? What if the constant search for happiness is teaching you to believe that where you are right now is never enough? This is the strange paradox of modern happiness. The more desperately we try to feel happy, the more attention we give to every moment when we don't. And slowly, happiness stops being something we experience. It becomes something we measure, something we monitor, something we chase, something we feel we're failing at. Imagine a man named Alex. From the outside, Alex is doing fine. He has a decent career. He earns enough money. He has friends. He travels occasionally. He exercises. He tries to eat well. He listens to podcasts about personal growth. He reads books about becoming a better version of himself. Nothing is obviously wrong. But Alex doesn't feel happy enough. And that phrase matters. Not happy. Not enough. Every morning, without realizing it, Alex checks the emotional weather inside his own mind. How do I feel today? If he feels good, he thinks, good, maybe things are finally getting better. But if he wakes up anxious, bored, lonely, or frustrated, another thought appears. Something is wrong, so he tries to fix it. He goes for a run. He watches something entertaining. He buys something he has been wanting. He makes plans for the weekend. He searches for another productivity system. He tells himself to be grateful. And for a little while, it works. Then the feeling disappears. So he starts searching again. Eventually, something changes. Alex is no longer simply living his life. He is evaluating it. Dinner isn't just dinner anymore. He is wondering whether he's enjoying it enough. A vacation isn't just a vacation. He's asking whether it feels as amazing as he expected. A quiet Sunday isn't simply a quiet Sunday. He wonders why he isn't happier. Even sadness becomes a problem to solve. And this is where the pursuit becomes exhausting. Because now Alex isn't only experiencing his emotions. He's judging them. He's experiencing sadness and then feeling bad about being sad. He's experiencing boredom and then wondering what is wrong with him. He's having an ordinary day and then comparing it with the extraordinary lives he sees on a screen. The original emotion was only one layer. Now there is a second layer, judgment. And sometimes that second layer creates more suffering than the first. This is one of the strange things about the human mind. When we constantly monitor something, we become more sensitive to it. If you start asking yourself every morning whether you're happy, you begin noticing every moment that doesn't feel happy. The absence of happiness suddenly becomes evidence. Evidence that your relationship isn't right. Evidence that your career isn't right. Evidence that your life isn't right. Evidence that maybe you're not doing enough. So you try harder, and the cycle begins again. There is another problem. Even when you do find something that makes you feel wonderful, the feeling naturally changes. A new relationship becomes familiar. A promotion becomes normal. A new phone becomes ordinary. A vacation ends. A new achievement becomes yesterday's achievement. Psychologists often describe this process as hedonic adaptation. We adapt to positive changes. The thing that once felt extraordinary gradually becomes part of normal life. And this creates a dangerous misunderstanding. We think, if this thing made me happy before, I need more of it now. So we keep moving. New experience, new purchase, new goal, new achievement, new relationship, new distraction. And for a moment we feel something again. Then it fades. And because it fades, we assume we need another thing. The problem isn't that pleasure is bad. The problem is believing that pleasure can permanently solve the discomfort of being human. Because there will always be another emotion, another difficult day, another disappointment, another period of uncertainty, another moment when you don't feel particularly happy. And if happiness has become the standard by which you judge your life, every one of those moments becomes a failure. This is where another psychological trap appears. Comparison. You don't compare your life only with other people's lives. You compare your internal experience with their external presentation. You see someone smiling on a beach. You don't see the argument they had that morning. You see the successful career. You don't see the anxiety behind it. You see the relationship announcement. You don't see the loneliness that exists inside it. You see the highlight reel. And then you compare it with the unedited version of yourself. Of course, you lose that comparison. But perhaps the deepest problem is even more subtle. We have started treating happiness as if it were a permanent emotional state, as if a good life should feel good most of the time. And if it doesn't, something must be wrong. But was that ever what happiness was supposed to mean? Long before modern self-help, ancient philosophers were asking a different question. Not, how can I feel good all the time? But, what does it mean to live well? That is a very different question. And one of the most important thinkers to explore it was Aristotle. For Aristotle, the good life was not simply a pleasant feelings. He used the idea of eudaimonia. It is often translated as happiness, but that translation can be misleading, because eudaimonia is closer to human flourishing, a life lived well, a life shaped by good character, meaningful activity, relationships, reason, and the development of human potential. And this changes everything. Because if happiness means feeling good, then sadness is evidence that something has gone wrong. But if happiness means flourishing, sadness can exist inside a good life. Failure can exist inside a good life. Difficulty can exist inside a good life. Even grief can exist inside a good life. The question is no longer, do I feel good right now? The question becomes, am I living in a way that is worth living? That is a much deeper question, and it is one that modern life often avoids, because feelings are easy to measure. You can ask yourself, am I happy? But a meaningful life is harder to measure. You have to ask, am I becoming the kind of person I respect? Am I giving attention to the people I love? Am I doing work that matters to me? Am I living according to my values? Am I present for my own life? These questions don't promise constant pleasure. They promise something more durable, a direction. Another ancient tradition gives us a similar insight. Epicurus is often remembered as a philosopher of pleasure, but his philosophy was far more subtle than simply saying, seek as much pleasure as possible. For Epicurus, a good life involved tranquility, friendship, simplicity, and freedom from unnecessary disturbance. The irony is that the endless pursuit of more pleasure can create the opposite. More desire, more comparison, more anxiety, more dependence on external things, more fear of losing what you have. Sometimes the path toward greater peace begins by wanting less. And then there are the Stoics. Epictetus emphasized a distinction that remains remarkably relevant. Some things are within our control. Other things are not. We can influence our actions. We cannot completely control outcomes. We can choose how we respond. We cannot command the world to give us what we want. And this matters for happiness because we often make an impossible demand. We tell ourselves, I must feel happy. But can you actually command yourself to feel happy? Try it. Right now, tell yourself, be happy. The command doesn't create the feeling. In fact, it can create pressure. Because now you're not only unhappy, you're aware that you're failing to become happy. The emotion has become a task. And this may be the central paradox. You can create the conditions in which happiness is more likely. You can build meaningful relationships, Take care of your body. Spend time in nature. Do work that matters. Practice gratitude. Develop healthy habits. But you cannot force happiness to appear on command. The moment you demand a particular emotional state, you create resistance to whatever state is actually present. And that brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Maybe you don't need to become happier. Maybe you need to stop requiring happiness to prove that your life is good. Read that again in your mind. You don't need to become happier. You may need to stop requiring happiness to prove that your life is good. Because a good life will contain moments that feel wonderful, and moments that feel ordinary, and moments that hurt. That doesn't make the life broken. It makes it human. Think about someone you love. Some of the most meaningful moments in life are not necessarily the happiest moments. Caring for someone when they are sick, working through a difficult problem, raising a child, building something that takes years, saying goodbye to someone you love, choosing to do the right thing when doing the easy thing would be more comfortable. These moments may contain pain, but they can still contain meaning. And perhaps meaning is what we have been confusing with happiness. We keep asking, how can I feel better? When sometimes the better question is, what is worth doing even when I don't feel good? That question changes the entire direction of a life. Imagine Alex again. For years, he has been chasing the perfect emotional state. But one evening, something simple happens. He is sitting at a table with someone he loves. Nothing extraordinary is happening. There is no luxury vacation, no achievement, no exciting announcement. Just an ordinary evening. And for once, Alex doesn't ask himself, am I happy? He simply pays attention. He listens. He notices the room. He notices the conversation. He notices that he is there. And something strange happens. He doesn't suddenly experience some enormous wave of happiness. Nothing magical happens. But he isn't trying to make the moment become something else. He isn't measuring it. He isn't comparing it. He isn't asking whether it is good enough. He is simply living it. And perhaps that is the point. Happiness often becomes more elusive when we stare directly at it. Like trying to fall asleep by repeatedly asking yourself whether you're asleep yet. The more you check, the harder it becomes. Maybe happiness works the same way. It is often a byproduct, not a destination. It can emerge from friendship, from meaningful work, from attention, from love, from curiosity, from doing something difficult that matters, from accepting reality instead of constantly negotiating with it, from allowing an ordinary moment to simply be ordinary. This doesn't mean you should stop improving your life. It doesn't mean you should accept suffering when you can change it. It doesn't mean ambition is bad. It doesn't mean you should never seek pleasure. The lesson is much more subtle. Don't make happiness the condition for allowing yourself to appreciate your life. Don't tell yourself, I'll be okay when I finally feel okay, because that day may never arrive in the form you imagine. There will always be another problem, another uncertainty, another emotion, another goal, another thing you could improve. The mind will always be capable of generating another reason why the present isn't quite enough. So instead of asking, how can I make myself happy? Try asking, what deserves my attention? Instead of, why don't I feel better? Ask, what matters right now? Instead of, is my life good enough? Ask, am I living according to what I value? And instead of treating every unpleasant emotion as an emergency, allow it to exist. You can be sad and still be okay. You can be anxious and still move forward. You can be bored and still be present. You can be frustrated and still be living a meaningful life. You can have a difficult day without deciding that you have a bad life. That may be one of the most freeing ideas ancient philosophy can offer modern life. A good life is not a life without unpleasant feelings. It is a life in which unpleasant feelings don't have the power to convince you that your entire existence is wrong. So perhaps the goal isn't to chase happiness harder. Perhaps the goal is to build a life in which happiness doesn't have to be chased. A life with people worth loving, work worth doing, values worth protecting, moments worth noticing. and enough space to experience life as it actually is, not as you think it should feel. The irony is that when you stop demanding that every moment make you happy, you may become more capable of noticing the moments that already do. The coffee tastes better because you're actually drinking it. The conversation feels deeper because you're actually listening. The walk feels different because you're not rushing toward the next thing. The quiet evening stops feeling like wasted time, and an ordinary life can suddenly reveal something extraordinary, not because everything changed, but because your relationship with the present changed. Maybe happiness was never something you were meant to catch. Maybe it was something that was allowed to appear while you were busy living. So stop asking whether every moment is making you happy. Ask whether the way you are living is worth being present for. Because a good life isn't one that always feels good. It's one that is worth being present for.